Some of you still have it. A plasma. 15, maybe 18 years old, heavy as a car door, still turning on every single night without complaint. And every time you walk past it, you think the same quiet thought. They do not make them like that anymore. And here is the ugly part. They do not want to. Walk into any store in 2026 and the cheap TVs on that wall are not built to last 15 years. Some are barely built to last 3. The television became disposable, and nobody sent you the memo. But underneath all the bargain bin junk, a handful of televisions still exist that you can buy today, under $1,000, built to give you that same quiet decade your old plasma did. You just have to know exactly which ones, because the shelf is designed to steer you wrong. So, 7 TVs under $1,000, ranked worst to best by one question. Which one will still be turning on 10 years from now? Treat that as the odds, not a promise, and let us start at the bottom, where the money goes to die. Number 7, the trap the entire shelf is built around. The no-name bargain QLED. You have seen it. A 65-inch screen for under $300, a brand you have never heard of, or a store's own house label with the letters QLED slapped on the box like a promise. It looks, on the sticker, like you just beat the system. You did not. That word on the box is nearly meaningless at this price. Underneath is a dim, edge-lit panel, a slow processor that was cheap 2 years before you bought it, and the quality control that owners complain about more than any other kind of set. Uneven, blotchy backlighting. Dead pixels out of the box. Menus that hesitate, apps that crawl. A picture that looks washed out the moment any daylight hits the room. One of the most common of these, an independent testing lab put through the ringer and found its high dynamic range picture basically did nothing at all. It does not age poorly, it starts poorly. And the cruelest part is the math. When a $300 TV fails in year 2, and they do, you do not repair it. Nobody repairs a $300 TV. You throw it out and buy another one. Do that 3 times in a decade, and that cheap television was never cheap. It was the most expensive way to watch anything in your house. Buy this only as a temporary screen for a garage or a spare room. Never, ever as the TV you actually sit down in front of. So let me ask you right now, before we climb, what are you replacing? Drop it in the comments, the brand, and roughly how old it is. I read these, and I am genuinely curious how many of you are coming off a set that lasted versus one that let you down. And if the whole point of this channel, saving you from the junk before you carry it home, is worth something to you, do me one small favor. Hit that like button. It costs you a second, and it pushes this in front of the next person standing in that store about to grab the $300 trap. And subscribe if you want honest TV advice with no hype, no sponsors, and no wasted money. That is the whole deal. Number 6, the safe-looking disappointment. The entry-level, big brand basic. This is the Samsung, the LG, the name you trust, but the cheapest model they make. And I understand the instinct completely. You had a good experience with the brand, so you reach for the familiar badge at the low price. It feels safe. The problem is what the badge is hiding at the bottom of the lineup. These entry sets are edge-lit, which means the light comes from a strip along the rim instead of behind the whole picture. So dark scenes look gray and cloudy, and bright objects smear a halo around themselves. The processor is a generation or 2 behind, and the brand knows most people will never compare it to anything, so there is very little pushing it to be good. It is not junk the way number 7 is junk. It is just a tired, basic television wearing a name that deserves better. And you feel it in the small ways, the ways that wear on you over years, not minutes. The remote and the menus have a half second of hesitation that never quite goes away. The picture that looked fine in the store looks flat and washed out on your own wall because the store had it in a dim demo room, not your sunny living room. And because it is the cheapest set the brand makes, it is also the first one they stop updating, so it ages faster than the price ever suggested. You did not buy a bad television. You bought a forgettable one, at a price where you could have had a genuinely good one. That is the quiet tragedy of the safe-looking badge. Buy it only if you are truly locked to one brand and one low price, and nothing will change your mind. But know that for the same money, or barely more, the next several sets on this list will run rings around it, and outlast it too. A trusted badge on a weak panel is not the safe choice, it feels like. Number 5, where the list finally gets good. The TCL QM6K. Now we are into real mini LED, and this is the moment the value starts to make sense. For under $600, this set puts the light behind the picture, in hundreds of little dimming zones, so blacks actually look black and bright highlights punch the way they are supposed to. Quantum dot color on top, so the picture is rich, not washed out. And here is why it matters for a set you want to keep. TCL got more reliable by doing less. It simplified the hardware, stopped chasing every gimmick, and fewer parts means fewer things to fail in year 4. That is the opposite of what most people assume, that more features make a better television. On a budget set, every extra subsystem crammed in to win a spec sheet war is one more thing that breaks after the warranty ends. TCL quietly worked that out. Buy the QM6K if you want the most genuine picture per dollar on this whole list, and you are watching every one of those dollars. Skip it only if you have a very bright room, because the 2 sets coming up get a lot brighter. Number 4, the twin that answers a brighter room, the Hisense U6. For right around the same money, under $600, Hisense hands you the same basic recipe, mini LED backlight, quantum dot color, and nudges it a little brighter than the TCL. In a room with big windows and afternoon sun, that extra punch is the difference between a picture you can see and a mirror you are squinting at. The honest truth is that the Hisense U6 and the TCL QM6K trade blows, and you will not go wrong with either. Pick the U6 if your living room is bright and you watch a lot of daytime television, news, sports, the game on a Sunday afternoon. Pick the TCL if your room is darker and you care most about movie night black levels. Either way, you are buying a genuinely good, genuinely durable television for the price the junk brands charge for garbage. That is the whole point of knowing this stuff. Quick one, because your answer actually helps the next person. Bright room or dark room, which one is yours? Type it below. It is the single biggest thing that decides which of these is right for you, and I want to see how the room splits. Number 3, the step up that is worth watching for a sale. The TCL QM7K. This is the QM6K's bigger brother, and when it drops on sale, and it does drop, sometimes to under $700, it is one of the smartest buys in this entire range. More dimming zones, a brighter panel, a faster refresh for anyone who watches fast sports or dabbles in gaming, and audio tuned by an actual audio company instead of an afterthought. The one caution is the price tag, because it carries a higher list price than the sets below it, and at full price the gap is not always worth it. So this is the set you watch. Put it on a list, wait for the sale, and when it slides under $700, you are getting a near premium television for genuine mid-range money. Buy it on sale if you want more headroom than the entry sets, and a picture that will still look modern in year 6. At full list, save your money and take the U6 or the QM6K instead. Same family, better timing. And let me say something about that patience, because it is the single most powerful tool a frugal buyer has, and almost nobody uses it. The stores count on urgency. They want you to walk in on a Saturday feeling like you have to leave with something today. But a television is not milk. It does not spoil. The exact set that is $800 this week will very often be $650 in a month, on a holiday weekend, for no reason other than the calendar. If you can wait, you are not being cheap. You are being paid, sometimes $150, to do nothing but wait a few weeks. That is the highest hourly rate most of us will ever earn, and all it costs is not panicking in the store. Number 2, the one I would point most people toward if the very top is just out of reach, the Hisense U7. This is where a budget television starts to feel genuinely premium. A much brighter panel, many more dimming zones, the kind of contrast and pop that makes people stop and ask what you are watching it on. It handles a bright room with ease and a dark room with real cinema depth, and it does both for comfortably under $1,000. And I want to be clear about what more dimming zones actually buys you, because the number on the box means nothing until you see what it does in your room. Each zone is a little pocket of the backlight the television can dim on its own. More zones means the set can keep a bright object bright and the darkness around it genuinely dark at the same time, instead of lifting a foggy gray halo around every streetlight and every star. On the news, it is the difference between crisp white text on true black and a washed-out gray band across the bottom of your screen. Over 10 years of nightly watching, that is not a spec. That is whether the picture keeps looking rich or starts looking cheap. And the U7 has enough of them to stay on the right side of that line. And the reason it sits this high is that it hits the sweet spot of the whole list. It is bright enough and well built enough to feel like a set you will be happy with for a decade without the very top price. If the champion coming up is a stretch for your budget, the U7 is not a consolation prize. It is a genuinely excellent television that most people would be thrilled to own for the next 10 years. Buy it if you want 90% of the best for quite a bit less than the best. Skip it only if you can find the number 1 pick on sale, because at that point, the gap closes. And that brings us to number 1. The best television you can buy under $1,000 in 2026, full stop. The Hisense U8, the U8QG. If you buy one set off this entire list and never think about it again, this is the one. Here is why it wins. It is dramatically brighter than anything else at this price. Bright enough to make high dynamic range content actually look the way it is supposed to. Bright enough to laugh at a sunny room. It has the deepest, most controlled backlight on this list, so you get near OLED black levels without OLED's price and without OLED's one weakness, which we will get to in the very next video. Independent reviewers have called it one of the best mini-LED televisions of its year at any price, and it routinely sells for under $1,000, sometimes well under. This is not a budget compromise. This is a genuinely high-end television wearing a mid-range price tag, and that combination is exactly what a frugal buyer is hunting for. And here is the part that matters most for someone who wants to buy once and be done. A television only lasts a decade if the company keeps feeding it. The apps you watch change every year, the streaming services update, and a set that stops getting software support becomes a slow, stuttering box, long before the panel itself ever fails. Hisense puts this model at the front of its lineup, which is exactly where the ongoing attention goes. You are not buying an orphan that gets forgotten the week after you carry it home. You are buying the set the company actually cares about keeping alive. And it is the one on this list I am most comfortable betting a decade on. Bright, well-built, backed by a brand putting its best engineering into this exact model. Buy the U8 if you want the most television and the most years for the least money. There is almost no one I would talk out of it. The only person who should skip it is the one who genuinely cannot stretch to it. And for you, the U7 right below is a set you will love just as long. So if this ranking just saved you from overpaying, or worse, from grabbing the trap at the bottom, this is your cue. Hit like right now. That is the entire arrangement. You dodge a bad buy, I get a like, and the next person in that store gets a little smarter too. Now, before the verdict, 2 honest things, because I promised you no hype. First, if you can stretch just past $1,000, a few sets open up that are worth knowing about. The LG C4, an OLED, goes on deep sales that sometimes bring it within reach, and it gives you a picture the mini LEDs on this list cannot quite match in a dark room. Samsung's step-up OLED does the same. They are wonderful, and if your budget can flex a little, look at them. But understand you are crossing into OLED, which brings its own trade-off around long-term wear that we are going to dig into next time. Because for some of you, especially if you leave the news on all day with that logo burned in the corner, that trade-off matters more than you would think. Second, the plasma truth, since it is the reason we started here. Your old plasma was a wonderful thing, but let us be honest about it. It ran hot. It was heavy enough to need 2 people. It drank electricity. And yes, it could get an image burned into it if you left the same channel on for days. It was not perfect. They stopped making them because the world wanted thinner, brighter, cheaper screens, and it got them. So the goal was never to find you another plasma. The goal was to find you the modern television that gives you the one thing your plasma really gave you. Not the exact picture, the years, the quiet decade of just working. And on this list, the ones that do that best are the Hisense U8 at the top and the U7 right behind it. Now, whichever of these you land on, there are a few simple things you can do to actually get your decade out of it, because how you run a television matters almost as much as which one you buy. Your old plasma taught everyone to crank the brightness to the maximum, but on a modern set, that is the fastest way to age the backlight and shorten its life. Out of the box, these TVs are usually set to torch mode, blazing away to look punchy under store lighting. And in your living room, that is both too harsh on your eyes and too hard on the panel. Turn it down to something comfortable, and you will see better and last longer. Both of you. 2 more that cost you nothing. Give the set a little room to breathe, an inch or 2 behind it, because heat is what quietly kills the power board over the years, and a television crammed into a tight cabinet with no airflow is a television cooking itself slowly. And put it on a decent surge protector, not straight into the wall. A single power spike in a summer storm can take out in 1 second the set you were hoping to keep for 10 years. And the protector costs less than a month of coffee. None of this is complicated. It is just the difference between a TV that dies at year 5 and the same TV still going strong at year 11. And here is the 30-second habit that protects you before you even buy. Because even a good brand makes the occasional lemon. Search the exact model with the words predicted reliability, and look for a rating of good or better, not fair. The badge on the box and the demo in the store tell you nothing about year 4. And know what actually fails, because it is almost always the same 2 parts. The backlight that dims or blotches, and the power board that quietly dies. On a cheap set, neither is worth repairing, which is the whole reason brand and build matter more at the bottom of the market than the top. And one rule on the extended warranty they will push at the register, because it is not always worth it. On a genuinely well-built set like the Hisense U8, with a strong reliability record, you can usually skip it. On a rock-bottom brand, the kind at number 7, a cheap protection plan is some of the smartest money you will spend, because that set is exactly the one that fails and cannot be fixed. Match the insurance to the risk. Cheap, shaky brand? Buy the plan. Solid set? Keep your cash. So here is your verdict. The simple version to carry into the store. Walk straight past the no-name bargain QLED at the bottom and the tired entry-level big brand basic above it. For real value on a tight budget, the TCL QM6K or the Hisense U6, picked by your room. Watch the TCL QM7K for a sale, and if you want a set you can genuinely stop thinking about for 10 years, the Hisense U7. Or the champion, the Hisense U8, which is the one I would buy with my own money today. So tell me before you shop, which of these are you leaning toward? And what is the one thing holding you back? The price? The room? The brand? Drop it below, and I will tell you honestly which one wins for your exact situation. That is what this channel is for. Because in the end, the cheapest television is never the one with the lowest price. It is the one you only have to buy once. Your plasma understood that. Now you have the short list of the modern sets that still do. And next time, we settle the fight the U8 hinted at. OLED versus QLED, the two picture technologies everyone argues about, and the one honest question that decides it for a set you want to keep. Which one actually lasts 10 years, and which one quietly wears out while you are still paying it off? If you leave the news on all day, you will really want to see that one. Hit subscribe so it finds you, and I will see you then.